Hello, everyone. This is Enamul Haq from Bangladesh, and we have my friend Philip Shah, as usual, and Andrew Penn. Andrew Penn and I, we actually studied together in 1986 onward, and then he is now a reputed banker, software engineer in the United States. Andrew Penn and Philip Shah and myself, we all studied together. So today, this is after many years, we are meeting together. So we thought, let us look into the world and look into the global economy and look at the current changes in the supply chain that has been happening, and which is a big competition globally in terms of trade and supply chains. So let me hear from Philip Shah.
Yeah, thank you, Enamel. And it's nice to see Andrew Penn again after about 30 years. We hope we see you again many more times within the next 30 years. But, it's interesting. We were just talking about 30 years ago, we met all us guys at the University of Guelph, and we were talking about how the world was so different now versus 35 years ago when we met and how things changed. And we just started chatting about global supply chains, and just take a look at China now versus 35 years ago, or the United States now versus the same. And, as we look into the future, you just got to wonder how the economy is going to go. And Andrew Penn here made a statement about, the future is about who has a successful supply chain for the global economy. And there's a lot of truth in that. So Andrew Penn, if you could just extrapolate on that and introduce yourself, we'll go from there.
Yeah, it's great to meet up with old friends and old classmates again, and it's actually I'm totally elated, to be able to get together and just and just like old times, discuss anything under the sun. Yeah. So going back to supply chain, right? Okay. So if these days, if you go to China or you visit China, you ask, all the kind of people in business, in various kind of industries, right? All they talk about is supply chain. Well, actually, the main thing that they talk about is supply chain, the geopolitics, problems. So how did China realize the supply chain was so important? And the reason is when Donald Trump started cutting off Huawei chip supplies and started cutting off, a software licensing, started cutting off a very different high technology export to China. That's when China started realizing, why the supply chain is absolutely crucial to your survival and to your vitality.
Okay. Yeah, and you could probably extrapolate this on the China's Road and Belt Initiative. And of course, countries like Canada felt the same thing, as the United States was our biggest trading partner. So you could probably talk about that in the sense of the Road and Belt Initiative from China as well.
No, exactly. If I may, the whole Belt and Road Initiative is to link the supply chain, because there's China being one of the largest economy in the world now, need a lot of products and need to ensure that the inputs are there. So the whole linkage is linking the market to and from China. One of the issue is that how do you get inputs from rest of the world? It could be minerals from Africa, it could be oil resources from Middle East or Iran, and also
soybeans from Brazil,
or beef from Australia. So these are all the linkage. Not only that, they also want to sell, because they're also one of the largest producers of many products, both manufacturing and now agriculture. So they need a linkage. I think the competition that is you see today, particularly in South China Sea, is about controlling the supply chain linkage. Because if you can snap this relationship there, you can halt Chinese supply chain network. So that, to me, that is also a strategic game that is happening. Not only just what Penn said that about the Huawei's and others cutting off. On technology side, I can also see on the communication and transportation side is also a war on supply chain.
Well, I think that I think that's very important. I think the problem is that typically in the work that I do, a lot of my American friends and my American commentators, they worry about China being transparent or not being transparent, and it gets down to they don't trust the Chinese, right? At the same time, I tell them, the view from Asia is different, and I see that when I'm in Bangladesh and see all the Chinese influence in a place like Bangladesh. But the view from Asia is different. That they don't necessarily trust the Americans, right? And you can see with the problems we had with President Trump and the disruption of the supply chains, and the Chinese had to react the way they did. So, as we look in the future, supply chain is going to be more and more important. What do you think, Andrew Pan?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So to add to that point, right now, I'm not sure, you guys probably have already heard that we have a chip shortage going on, right? Okay. And why is that, right? So part of the reason is because of the sanctions that were levied by the Trump administration, and it's right now still going on under the Biden administration, right?
Yes.
People are hoarding chips, right? So before there was this just-in-time like supply chain, right? So just-in-time kind of a supply chain management, right? That concept is gone. I mean, right now, for each, particularly in terms of chip, you want to hoard the thing as much as you can, right? Because you never know where it's going to be coming from, next month, right? So having, this kind of, geopolitics and sanctions being placed on various different countries and entities have created a huge disruption. Basically the kind of logistic flow, right, is completely disrupted, and it's just kind of like basically we're having a blockage in our arteries, so the heart has to make a bypass right, somewhere to try to get the oxygen, get nutrient supplies right to the various organs.
Do you see this changing over time?
It's the in the world economy, the biggest thing is trust. Right.
Yeah.
So once that trust is broken, right, it's going to be difficult.
I think that is, to me, the biggest challenge field, that once this whole trust is gone, I'm not sure whether the global trade framework that exists today will run very smoothly, because there is a lot of mistrust and distrust happening, not just between countries, but also between regions. Because if you look into the China-Russia relationship and versus Europe-Russia, Europe-China, Europe-Americans, all relationships are in a crossroad, the way I see it. And I see that itself is like a global war on who is going to control the supply chain where. And to me, that is something happening.
Yeah. So in terms of after the Cold War was over, after the end of the Soviet Union, right? There was generally a time when the whole world could be united, right, into a kind of having a unified world vision, right? That's
exactly how WTO has come forward. If you think about it, WTO as a concept of creating a one world with a global, administration and legal framework was designed based on a trust. And I think that particular trust is gone. So I believe the way I look into it is more of it's right now is we are in a crossroad of a war on this particular phenomena. And this particular phenomena, my belief that will continue for few more years until we find, either we go to a critical juncture when we understand that this kind of disruption or disruptive strategy may not work for all of us, or we have to find a solution of being apart from each other. I don't know which one is going to happen.
Well, the other thing, we're still dealing. Most of the world is still dealing with COVID as well, and that's staggering the world economy, depending on where COVID is bad, which is most everywhere, except maybe the United States now, Britain, and maybe Canada coming up, and that's difficult because there's trust involved with that as well. Because of the amount of vaccine that was available or was not available. And and we're still not out of that. How about Africa? How about South America? How about these countries? Huge trading blocks that for some reason there's almost a there's been a different distribution of vaccines has been uneven around the world, and we all have to be vaccinated in order to get better. But still, that trust issue is a very, very big deal. And a small country, Bangladesh would understand this with China and India. Canada certainly understands it with the United States. All the countries of East Asia understand it with China. Generally speaking, in Canada, we think that the United States generally gets what they want. And we have to acquiesce in some ways. To some extent, it's the same way in East Asia with China as well. The problem is when the Americans look toward China, they're not used to acquiescing on anything. And so these trust issues permeate the whole global economy. And during COVID, especially, it's a difficult time.
Yes, Phil, but I think the last, finally, my point is that trust building is being disrupted because it's a horse trading happening across the world. So if you think about it, the competition on the vaccine diplomacy, for example, is all horse trading. One country is trying to buy another country, telling someone, and the Penn was just saying that how the Taiwan got into this horse trading and getting vaccine because of their problem. So all these are happening with technically, it's all because of these horse trading happening across the world. So I think we can get out of this. And I think with that, let us close this show for today. Thank you, Phil, and thank you, Pan, for today.
Please subscribe to this channel to receive updates on new videos.